too. Okay, so there's so much to get out here. It's hard to know where to start, but the beginning, I guess, for me. So I've actually been party to hearing conversations recently floating around Rochester that somehow I had something to do with the mismanagement of the money and the reason the place shut down. I would just like to say, for the permanent record and for my own peace of mind, I never got anywhere near any money. I wasn't allowed to see the books, the finances. Even though I was the director of operations, I was never allowed to even see the books. I had no idea how much was in the accounts. I didn't have access to them. I didn't have signing privileges. I didn't have a credit card in my name that belonged to the agency. Despite being second in command, I had to fight for about 2 years to even get petty cash to be able to use for like just small agency purchases that we need during the day, to buy cookies for a program or to, I don't know, pay somebody for a postage that needed to be paid when the mail carrier would bring it. So no, I had nothing to do with that. And there was no smoking gun that I ever saw about like why the finances were so bad. Like I said, from what I understood, first of all, people don't understand, despite the fact that the Outer Alliance has been around for 50 years, like we didn't get state money, we didn't get city money, we didn't get federal money. All of the monies came in. All the money that came in was the monies made off of Pride that kept us open, and personal donations. And the executive director was really bad at development and did a very poor job of procuring relationships that would continue sustaining donors. So there was very little money coming in outside of our programming that we were doing, which was always very low in cost because we didn't want it to be cost prohibitive for people to participate. And so there just was the money that would have been in the stockpile, like the leftover money that someone might have seen when at some point in a tax return there was a large balance, was what was used to pay all the staff our salaries and to keep the building running and the lights on and the rent paid. So I never saw a smoking gun. But again, I also didn't see the books. It also got real funky there at one point because the board member, Sylvia, who was also the treasurer of the board, was really good friends with Jeff. They were always in cahoots. Even when the board was in closed session where the executive director couldn't be a part of it, she was texting him back and forth and they were having conversation. Ironically, she also was the bank manager at the place where Outer Alliance banked. So any of the money that was coming in and out from the agency and into the bank and to be seen by the board all went through her, which I'm almost positive is not okay, because I know there were multiple times where there were checks that, like when I had to go drop off checks as just like part of my job, I would go through the bank teller line and like the drive up, and they would say I couldn't deposit them because they weren't written out correctly or couldn't be deposited or were too old or whatever. And Jeff would say, no, I'll take it, and Sylvia would do it, and she would deposit it. So I know that there was some funny business going on there, but I really to this day don't feel like anyone was stealing. I just think that people did a really bad job, and when I say people, the executive director did a really bad job of bringing more money in and managing the money, and then would lie to the board, the remainder of the board, about what the finances really looked like. They never had a clear picture of what money was there and what wasn't, and they certainly didn't understand how we were being forced to run the center, like with the bare bones, bare minimum, not spending money on like light bulbs. And Braden, the program manager, would do programs and would often go to pay for food, like for the programs at Wegmans, and our corporate card would get declined because there was no money there. It happened to me also. We would often go to doctor's appointments and find out that our insurance had been canceled because he didn't pay our insurance premiums, and so we couldn't get dental care or go to the doctor's office often. I'm a diabetic. I'm an insulin-dependent diabetic, so there were times that I would go to pick up my insulin and not be able to get it because our insurance had been shut down and we didn't know, because he didn't pay the bill. So he would go scrambling around. He, being the executive director, would go scrambling around to try to get us our insurance turned back on, or beg them to turn the policy back on so that we could eventually, in a week, in a few days, in a few weeks, be able to go to the doctor's office. But it happened all the time. That was the life we were living, and that was far earlier than the pandemic. But there are worse things. So next, I'm going to talk about like how the agency actually shut down, like what the factors were that led us to the point that we actually closed doors.